and welcome to this how to help video on factorising quadratics. There are two different types of quadratics. You have this type, which is in the crossover section. It's in foundation and higher. And you've obviously got this type. And the difference between them is just this tiny little detail here. This has a value, whereas this is just 1x squared. So at foundation level, at that crossover level, you would be looking at this style only. And I'm going to dedicate this particular video to this question. And this will go into quadratics too. It uses the same method, but with with like an extra step to it. Okay, so when I was obviously first teaching this, the thing that stood out the most is like the biggest problem people found with this were the negatives. It just kind of muddled them and messed them around a little bit. So I came up with something that did require some recall, some extra thinking, in the sense that you've got to remember this kind of key. It's like a code. But once you've done that, it reduces the amount of negative thinking that you need to do. It doesn't eliminate it completely, sadly. It doesn't do that, but it does a really good job at just narrowing it right down and making this feel much more accessible. So you may see something in this that you don't see in other videos. Okay, so let's have a look, first of all, at what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this key. So when you have a quadratic question, you've got these three terms and you've got a couple of signs obviously in between. These are no different. You've got your three terms, and there is a general rule, which is if you've got three terms, you factorize into two brackets. It's a general rule. There is an exception, which we will see. So there is an exception to the rule, but on the whole, that's your go-to. So you first of all read that you need to factorize. You look at how many terms there are, and you know that there are three, so it will be two brackets. So your answer is going to have these two brackets. In the brackets, you are going to have some signs, pluses, minuses, whatever they might be. And what we do is we create a key that just means I can look at the question and know exactly what's going to be in the brackets without even having to think about it. I just use my code, okay? So if my question, I'm going to do it over here, if my question starts with a positive and it has another positive, so like this question here has a positive and has another one here. So if my question is what I say pos, then my answer is going to have exactly the same. I can just copy it down. Pos neg is exactly the same, but it's not always exactly the same. And that's why we need to understand and learn this, because when it starts with a negative, let's say I've got neg, which is what I've got in this question here, neg. When I've got neg, something happens, okay? I do keep the first sign, but then I switch the second. And when I've got neg pos, I do that same thing. I keep the first sign and I switch the second. So a lot of it is kept, what's in the question is kept, but there's that little bit of a switch on the second sign if it starts with a minus. So that is the key that you would want to commit to memory. And when I'm in the lessons, you know, I often say, right, what if it's pos, what is it? Pos. If it's neg, what is it? Neg pos. And we just kind of repeat it a few times over just to try and get it into our heads. Obviously, you can keep a key written down near the work that you're doing as well until it's kind of stuck in your head. Okay, so let's see the whole method. So we're going to do this one first of all. So this is the steps that you do every single time. So you go, okay, it's factorizing. There's three terms, so it's two brackets. Get those done. This term just drops down into the beginning of each bracket. So I've got x squared. So I've put one of the x's here and one of the x's here. I then do the signs. I've got pos, pos. So I've got pos, pos. All I've got left to do now is work out the numbers that have to go here. And this is what's going to help me find it. So you use the last term and you look at the factors. So 3 times 8, 2 times 12, 4 times 6. I could keep going, find all the integer factors that you can. And then you are going to look at your middle section. And you're going to look down here at the numbers that are going to help you make the middle section. Okay, now 3 and 8 could make me 11, could also make me 5 if I was to take away. That's not it. This could make me 14 if I added. It could make me 10 if I took away. This could make me 10 if I added, or it could make me 2 if I took away. So I've got a 10 in both of these, okay? But for this question, all right, for this pair, I should say, that would make a 10 with a takeaway involved. But when I look at my brackets, I've only got positives in my bracket, okay? So I want the positive 10, which came from this one. So 4 and 6 are going in. They can go in any order. I don't even need to think about it. If I had done x plus 6 and then x plus 4, that's still correct. Okay, it's just the other way around. And that is your first example of factorising. All right, so let's look at this one underneath. So 3 terms, 2 brackets. I'm looking at pos neg. It starts positive. So I know I'm going to be just copying. So I'm going to drop my x, copy my signs, and now I'm ready to look at this number here and think about what multiplies to make it. So 3 and 10, 3 times 10, 2 and 15. What else? 5 and 6. And then keep an eye on this middle bit here. Keep an eye on what you're trying to make. So I can see 1x. I want to make an x1. So I need a combination here that's going to create the 1. And that is the last one I've just written down, this one here. 6 take 5 is going to give me 1. Okay, so I've got to put my 6, positive 6, take 5, positive 6, take 5 equals 1, positive 1. This is where you have to be really careful. If you've got a plus and a minus in the brackets, it's really vital we get them the right way round. If I'd made a mistake and put the 5 here and the 6 here, what I've just written is a positive 5, take away 6, which is minus 1. And minus 1 is not what's in the middle. Positive 1 is in the middle. Can you see all that? Okay. Positive 1 is in the middle. So you do have to really think about where to put them when the signs are different in the brackets. Okay. Right. I'm just going to clean this up and then we can have a look at the other 2 that I've put down, just so you've got a couple of extra examples to look at. So let's do the first one. 3 terms, 2 brackets. It's neg, neg. It's starting with a negative. So I'm going to drop the x's, keep the first negative, and switch the second sign to its opposite. So I'm all set up, ready to go. I am going to be thinking about my 56. So it's always the end term. What multiplies to make 56? 7 and 8. I'm going to check that that's going to give me what I'm looking for, which it does. I just want 1x. That's going to create me a 1. But look, I want minus 1x. So I've got to put this in an order that's going to create me a -1. So I'm going to say 7, +7, take away 8, and that gives me my -1. And that's it, job done. Let's do the last one. 3 terms, 2 brackets, drop the x, it's neg, so it's neg pos, just like the last question. This time it's 77. Well, I'm going to do 7 times 11 straight off because I know the pattern. And that is creating me a 4, which is perfect. But remember, watch that sign. You must pay attention to the sign. It's -4. So I've got to put the 7 and 11 in a way that creates me -4. So 7 take away 11 makes me -4. And that is it. Okay. Now I'm going to just very quickly show you the question x squared -49. This is 2 terms. Now 2 terms would normally tell me 1 bracket, but if I try to factorize this into 1 bracket, it isn't going to work. 1 bracket requires me to put something on the outside that is common in both terms. So I've got an x here, but there isn't an x here, so that's not common. I've got a number here, but I haven't got a number here, so I can't pull any common factors out of numbers. So actually, I can't do anything with this particular expression in order to get it into a single bracket. And this is the exception to my rule, okay? So my general rule is 3 terms, 2 brackets with an exception, and this is what it is. This is going to go into 2 brackets. How do I know this? How can I identify? Well, first of all, I might not and try and do a single bracket and realize it's not going to work. So that might be my trigger. This is the exception to the rule. Or you might spot that the end here is a square number. When I've got a negative square number on the end, okay, it means that I can square root the 49. So I'm going to drop down the x. I'm going to put a plus and a minus in. I'll show you why in a minute. And then I square root 49, which gives me 7. Okay, 7 times 7 is 49. -7 times -7 is 49. So they're both giving me that result. So I want square root of 49, could be plus or it could be -7. Yeah. Positive 7s make 49, negative 7s make 49. If I'm square rooting 49, how do I know whether it was the positive or the negative version that did it? So I've got a plus and minus option of 7, and then those signs, plus and minus, are what we pop in the brackets here, plus and minus. All right, so I hope you found that quick how-to useful.